Welcome to Wolf's Watch. I am Wolf. Are you ready? Are you ready, entrepreneurs, to talk about entrepreneurship? Or if you're thinking about the entrepreneur journey, are you ready? Because today we have a special guest who is all about entrepreneurship. He has a great story in and of itself on his journey into entrepreneurship. He's a best-selling author. He has launched multiple companies in multiple industries, and he is a very sought after coach and mentor for entrepreneurs as well. Please welcome Jake Shannon. Jake, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, Jeffrey, man, I am super amped. After I talked to you, we talked on just a group call, dude, You are man, I'm actually trying to figure out how to be like you, because you have, I'm taking people to $2 million. You're taking people to $100 million. So I love it. I just love it.
That's high praise indeed, man. Because I want to start out with your journey as an entrepreneur. I mean, you've gone from intense quantitative, and I started out early in my career. I was teaching industrial statistics, and as you're watching this, if you were in one of my early seminars, I apologize. We did a lot better a few years later, but it's such a dramatic arc. Because you've done the hardcore analytical, you've been in financial services, you've been in coaching, sales coaching and training. How have you been successful? Oh, and in the fitness industry as well, with fitness and martial arts. How have you been successful in so many different areas?
I think a lot of it, honestly, is just really about persistence. When I was a young man, I heard this Calvin Coolidge quote that, it's just a rhyme: persistence prevails where all else fails. And for me, I came in as, I'm from a very blue collar family. Neither one of my parents went to college. Very, very middle class, maybe even a little more like lower middle class. And, I had great parents, but just they didn't have access to financial information or running businesses. And the whole thing was always oh, got to get a job. That's how you're going to do it. They bought in to the whole, got to go to college type of deal. I ended up going to University of Colorado Boulder on a leadership scholarship. And it was positive. But what was positive about going to college for me is it wasn't the curriculum. That was a giant waste of time and money. What was important was me being able to network with people that were from wealthier families that I never, the way of just thinking.
Yep.
I never had been exposed to that. And so one of my college roommates, his name's Michael Burnett, a huge influence on my life. He runs Thrasher magazine right now, which is the big skateboarding magazine. Right. And
yeah,
we were college roommates. And I just saw how he was taking this just obsession, to kind of refer to Cardone a little bit, but he took this obsession and really turned it into something amazing. You know what I mean? Anyway, so that was my first inkling, but I still didn't quite get entrepreneurship. It was such a foreign place. I wasn't even interested. And I moved to San Francisco to pursue grappling, because I've been very involved with I saw the UFC.
And when you say grappling, what exactly is that?
Well,
it brings an image to mind, but it's probably not what you're talking about.
It's like wrestling, but instead of going for a pin, you're going to submit the person, make them concede, tap or give up or whatever.
Like we see in the octagon, where it's all about
exactly. So I was in Denver, because I grew up in Colorado, and I was in Denver, and the first two UFCs were held in Denver.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, in 94.
Okay.
And I went live to the second one, and that radically changed my life. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to do this. And so there was none of that in Colorado. So I moved out to California to pursue it. But California is crazy expensive, especially San Francisco, where I moved. Yeah. And it was rough. You know what I mean? I was a young man, not getting good kind of financial or professional advice. And I was working 4 minimum wage jobs. I always tell this story of the day that I decided to stop being poor. I was working as in in a video store because I was obsessed with Quentin Tarantino, and that's what he did to be famous. So I thought that was the way to do it. In a video store, I worked in bookstores. I was a teller in a bank, and I was an usher at a movie theater. I had all 4 jobs. It was awful. I was constantly working, making no money, living off of like ramen and eggs. And the day I decided to really figure out this money thing was I was sitting in my break room at the bookstore, which was in the Richmond district of San Francisco, lots of Chinese restaurants in that area. And my one indulgence that I ever gave myself during this extreme poverty that I was in was that I would allow myself at lunch to go across the street, and they had a $2 lunch special. That was like extravagant for me. And they'd scoop Chinese food into this box, and I'd go back to my the workroom and wolf it down because you had a half hour for lunch. Anyway, one day I'm doing that, wolfing it down, and I get halfway through, and I look in the box, and it's just full of like cockroach corpses and body parts.
Oh man.
And it was so bad that I looked at it and I just was like, man, and I picked out the body parts and I finished the food. And after that, I was so disgusted with myself. And like, I was like, is this really what I want to be doing? Like how I want to live? And I was working at this one bookstore. I got this job at this bookstore that was called Laissez-Faire Books. Laissez-Faire Books. This is before Amazon. And they had the biggest, it was a libertarian bookseller, right? So they had this mailer they sent out. Anyway, because they were appealing to libertarians, they sold a lot of economics books. And I just was the manager of shipping. So I was always sitting there in the downtime reading these economics books. It started making sense to me. And we would host authors to come in and do book signings and stuff in San Francisco. And one of them came in and I started rapping with him. He was impressed that I was that serious about economics. He's like, man, you need to, I'm the dean over at the grad school. Why don't you apply? And it blew my, because my undergraduate's in English. So to me, that was like, okay.
Yeah.
So, 10X, even, prior to having any inkling what that meant, I was like, F it. I'm going to go do this crazy thing and commit. Even though I don't know what the hell I'm doing, I'm way out of my league here. And I studied my ass off. And I started out in the applied economics department at Golden Gate University, which was it's the oldest private school in California.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cool, but this was right when the dot-com boom was happening, and there was no computer courses in the applied economics course. But they had this one track called financial engineering. It was brand new. It was like we were like one of the very first schools to actually offer this as a full-on Master of Science degree. And then I was like, well, screw it. I mean, I'm already this heavily committed into something. I'm out of my depth. I might as well go all the way. And so I did that. And I ended up graduating 2002 with my Master of Science in financial engineering, which is quantitative analysis. And
I was going to say that's hardcore analysis.
Yeah, it was rough, dude, to make that transition. I mean, but I've always been a really hard worker. So like, even though I was working these gigs and whatnot, I mean, I just was studying. I just busted my ass. Like, I mean, there's just no other way around it. Busted ass. Harder than, I guarantee you, I work harder than anybody I know. I'm probably not as hard as you, but I mean, I do work my ass off. I am going from, everybody talks 9 to 5. I'm 5 to 9. You know what
Exactly.
I mean?
Exactly.
So long story short, I'm still on this path of like going the establishment route, thinking that schooling and all this is going to be the way. And I gathered a lot from it and got another, better network and all that kind of stuff. So there is that value in school. But, I eventually figured out like, okay, I'm making $250,000 a year. I went from total poverty. And this is back in 2003 or 4 when that was like a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm making like $250,000. I'm 30 years old. I'm like, 32 or something. I'm just like super stoked, but I'm bumping up against, I'm like pushing hard and I'm like, well, wait a minute. I need to be making more money. And I kept bumping. Like, I'm like, I'm not going to make this money working for somebody else. Even if I get my KPIs and my annual bonus, I'm not going to make what I want to make. And you know what it was? It was honestly a Dr. Dre, some rap song, some gangster rap song. And
Really?
he was arguing with somebody in his rap in his mind or something. And he said, you know, move units and then we'll talk. And I was like, that really resonated with me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, if I want $1,000,000, I got to sell something for $1 to 1,000,000 people. Like the math was super easy. I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out. And so because I'd always been involved with grappling, I decided to like, how can I make this work? Right? Like, how can I take something that I have that I'm passionate about and flip it from a liability into an asset? And I first started just like, I, I was buying so much wrestling gear and books and going to camps and all this kind of stuff. I was
So
like,
how
well,
long had you been involved with grappling at this time?
oh man, my mom put me in when I was a peewee, so 1979.
Oh, okay. That was really a lifelong journey then.
I did wrestling and then I quit when Karate Kid came out. And I thought that was better, which was a huge mistake. I should have just stayed in wrestling.
Yeah. No, yeah. Yeah. I remember
So
that.
a long time. So I had some knowledge of it and I knew the market well.
Okay.
And I just started this company because I was spending so much money on it. I was like, well, I'm just going to start a company and write it off. I'm not even worried about cash flow. And then I started thinking, I'm like, everybody, like some of the things I was collecting these old, super old, antique wrestling books. And these were like collector's items. They're expensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh man, I know that I'm a nerd for this. And if I want this, I know there's other people ain't making 250 a year that can just go out and buy all these old wrestling books. So one weekend, I sat down with all the books and I sat with my scanner and literally scanned like 10,000 pages eventually and put
Wow.
it together, published it, released it. And I did that, I think, in 2003. And since then, so that venture was called Scientific Wrestling. And that has become like a global phenomenon. I definitely dominate that market space. It's led me to be able to train with like all my heroes. I was always a mediocre wrestler, but I'm a nerd. So I'm like, I do work hard and I study harder than anybody. So I knew who to talk to. I knew who to mentor with. And, one of the other things besides persistence was, modeling or mimicking the best. Like just don't,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like lessons in life, don't waste your time trying to figure things out. Go talk to these guys that have already blazed a trail. And so I ended up working like, okay, so we had the licensing mastermind on like Monday, Tuesday of the prior week, right? Last week or whatever in
Uh-huh.
Aventura. Well, Saturday and
Oh,
Sunday.
wait a minute. Back up a second. As you're watching this, this is what Jake's talking about. Could you explain what the licensing mastermind was?
Okay, so this is how Jeffrey and I met. So the licensee mastermind is basically Grant's got 10 billion hours of content and wonderful, amazing knowledge. And for those of us that are completely obsessed with what he's done and modeling him, like I'm talking about modeling the best, this is what led me into the licensing mastermind. I've been doing this business development consulting for 10 years. And, it's fine. It's awesome. I'm happy with where I'm at. But I want better. I want more, and when Grant started offering out this licensee program, which basically allows you to represent him and also sell his products as well as share his ideas and whatnot. I was like, man, this guy is a beast. This guy is literally the best in the space. I would be stupid to compete with him. I'm going to draft after him. I'm going to get into this licensee and I'm going to use his branding and his marketing. I will never, ever, ever, ever beat Grant on marketing, ever. That guy is a flipping animal. He's a genius. So I'm like, I'm gonna hook up on this licensee deal and invest in it and use it to draft behind because I've got to kick my own kick-ass business development system. But
Mm-hmm.
why not leverage, the genius that Grant is? So really, that principle of like trying to study with the very, very best. Sometimes it's expensive. Sometimes it requires crazy sacrifice. But to me, that is like crucial. And so that's what kind of led me to Grant and led me to you.
Well, and you're continuing to walk the talk too, right? You coach other people, you do, you help entrepreneurs get their businesses spooled up and scaled up. Yet at the same time, you're still reinvesting in mentorship and coaching in masterminds so
Oh,
that you can look at, okay, you're helping people that are here get to here, watching my camera to make sure I can get my hands, got to talk with my hands. But at the same time, while you're here, you're getting around people that are like, boom, like Grant Cardone. So you can model what they're doing in order to take it to the next level and bring more people with you.
every plateau I've ever hit is because I got too big in my own head. Because
I'm glad I've never made that mistake.
because I wanted to
Yeah.
be the smartest guy in the room, which is stupid. You know what I mean? That's like the irony. Is like wanting to be the smartest guy in the room is freaking stupid. It's such a limit on who you can be and what your potential is. And so, like once I kind of processed that, got out, I was like, man, this is an incredible opportunity. This guy is like a literal. He's,
Yes.
I think people dismiss Grant because he's funny as hell. He's kind of got this Southern accent. It's hard to, you could take a physicist, right? You could feel me because you know this field. You could take somebody who's a mega quant, and if they talk about this and stochastic calculus, they still don't sound like a genius. But if you put an English accent, all of a sudden, it's like the same guy, right?
Right.
But the thing is Grant is a flipping genius. I am so like blown away by everything I listened to by that guy. It's like unbelievable. He's really, really, and he's so generous too. He doesn't have to be. Him and Brandon Dawson, both those dudes are like huge, huge heroes of mine and now mentors, which I'm just like so grateful for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The mentorship makes a huge difference. And it seems that's been consistent throughout your life where you've been able either purposefully or by, synchronous. I don't believe in coincidence, so I don't want to use that word, but you find them along the way.
It's because you're looking, right?
Yeah.
If you're looking and you're looking smart, maybe not, looking in the right places and stuff, you really increase the odds of that synchronicity taking place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Got to be open to it and have to take advantage of it.
Like meeting you, man, like for me, so not only did I do scientific wrestling, I also invented this thing called the Mace Bell. If you go to Mace Bell, not ball, bell, like it's like I took the name from a kettlebell because they were super trendy.
Oh, okay, hot. Right. Yes.
And it's basically a kettlebell, but instead of having that looped handle on the cannonball, right, it's got a stick. And so it's crazy and it's very versatile. And actually, it harkens back to like ancient Persia and ancient India. It was a tool that the wrestlers used to work out. So I invented that too.
There's a long history for that as well.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. So I'm known as like the father of that. It's like super trendy. In fact, I walked into a 24-hour fitness a couple months ago, and I'm like, I saw one, and I'm like, oh, I invented that. And they're like, yeah, you did. I'm like, I did, man. That's like I totally made that. But that's gotten big. But then the other, like, I haven't just done fitness stuff. So I was working as a quant and now, so you're in Southern California, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I was working as a quant for IndyMac Bank. Do you remember them?
Oh yeah. They were huge before the global financial crisis.
Oh dude, they were huge. We were like the seventh or sixth largest mortgage originator. Like it's huge. And I was the manager of oversight for complex instruments or some bullshit title. Like, I don't know. I looked over a lot of some of the more hard to value things like mortgage servicing rights and stuff. I developed a lot of the modeling and looked over like these regulations like FAS 133 and, Sarbanes-Oxley regulations and whatnot. And so I was working for IndyMac, and they were the first bank to get nationalized during that 2008 crisis, right? Like,
yeah.
And this was another big jump for me in terms of like just taking the jump of being an entrepreneur and fully relying on my wits to survive instead of relying on a boss or a job. Because I was working there and I had some hoity-toity title. It was awesome. I was doing what I thought I wanted to be doing, which I hated, honestly. But, like when you're in grad school, you get this idea, and then the day-to-day is you're sitting in this office and it sucks, right? I'm like, well, it's not.
You were checking all the boxes that we get taught growing up that this is the path to success.
and I wasn't happy, man. I felt like my soul was being like strangled every day, like slowly dying. I
Yeah.
would tell I was dating my wife at this time, and I'd tell her that, and she's always been supportive of me
Hmm.
jumping out of that, which is crazy, like especially if I'm making that much money. That's how I knew she really loved me for me and not for my money, right? It's like she totally supported my crazy ideas. But I'm working there, and I remember my job interview. My boss had a bachelor's in physics, a master's in electrical engineering, and a PhD in physics.
Hmm.
Very smart woman. And I remember 2004 when they were hiring me during my job interview, I said, okay, so what's the plan with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac? They're basically insolvent. And just her face just was like didn't have an answer. I'm like, my God, this is somebody that should know an answer like that. You know what I mean? Because I didn't know, but I'm like, anyway, so she hired me, and I ended up working, but I kept raising these points about these Alt-A liar loans, right? The
Hmm.
no doc loans. Like we get these stories of like a plumber buying $1 million home. And I'm like, dude, that is not sustainable. Like, and I'm raising my hand, and you know what? Me doing what I thought was the right thing and being concerned, which eventually played out. I've one of my modeling friends, like totally on my LinkedIn, was like, "Oh, Jake totally predicted the whole financial crisis," and I mean, it was like an awesome little blurb, right? But I mean, I'm asking these questions, and I end up getting marginalized. I end up seeing that this is bad for my career to speak up.
You're
And
upsetting the gravy train. That's not good. We're not
dude,
supposed to do that.
like I'm messing with their KPIs. It's going to get their freaking bonuses at the end of the year, right? But I'm right.
Right.
I'm like, I am right. You guys like, you're going to end up in orange jumpsuits. Like, this is not good, right? So I saw the writing on the wall. I saw myself kind of being pushed out a little bit. Like, if I'm honest, they didn't want to hear it.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I built the model to value servicing rights for reverse mortgages. They at that time, Andy Mack had acquired Financial Freedom, which was the number one originator for financial mortgages, reverse mortgages at that time.
Remember, they used to advertise like crazy.
Oh yeah, and then all the like late night infomercials with
Hmm.
I can't remember the celebrity they had, but yeah. So I jumped ship. I moved from Pasadena at Indy Mac down to Financial Freedom in Irvine. Okay, and I'm working, and it's cool. It's better. Like my boss there, a great guy. Okay, his name's John Lundy. Great guy. He was actually younger than me, which was weird. But like a great guy. He was in charge of the metrics department. I was the manager of modeling for all of Financial Freedom. Um, but he kept bugging me, right? Because at this point, this is probably 2006, financial reverse mortgages were new. Okay. So there weren't like public companies. And he kept bugging me. We'd have this Friday manager meeting, and he kept bugging me like, I need market share statistics, market share. And I'm like, dude, unless you give me a budget for corporate espionage, you're just going to have to be happy with what you got, because I can't get there's no like 10Ks or whatever for me to go like get these numbers off of, right? And crunch the data. So he kept bugging me, and this like just got in my head. And I had worked uh, prior to graduating with my master's degree. I had a gig as an associate statistician for DoubleClick. Do you know who DoubleClick is? The
Sure
big
do. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
advertising banner people, right? I
Hmm.
worked for a subsidiary of theirs called Abacus Direct, and they were like a blind database for marketing. So Fredericks of Hollywood and Victoria's Secret could both give them their data tapes, and then you go in, you find a lookalike, you pull the data out, dedupe the people that were on your list, and market to these people. You know what I mean? Like, you understand, right? So I was in charge of doing QA on these models, and for some reason, one day, you know how ideas come. You want to take credit for them, but really they like pop in your head when you're in the shower or something. It's not like you really did anything,
Right.
you know? So one day he keeps bugging me with this question, and I'm just like, God, this is the stupidest thing. So I came up with the answer. I said, the next Friday managers meeting, and it's just a one-on-one. There wasn't a group of people. It's just one-on-one. He says to me, okay, man, what do you got? Let's do this. You got some, I said, hey, I figured it out. And he looked at me, he's like, what? And he's like, are you serious? I'm like, I am serious. I figured this out. And I get you this, but you're going to have to quit your job. I'm going to have to quit my job. We're going to have to take Topher, the database guy, with us. And he goes, what, dude? I go, here's what we're going to do. We're going to create
Yeah,
a
I mean, that's
blind
not really
database.
the advice he was looking for.
No, not at all. But I said, let's do this. We're going to create a blind database and we're going to go around to all the reverse mortgage people, have them sign an NDA. They're going to put their data in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to spit out industry statistics that, well, like, so let's say that you're Wells Fargo, you give us your data. We can aggregate everybody's data so you get market share information. And then we just send back like where you are and everybody else is anonymous. But we do that for everybody. And I'll be damned if he didn't bite. And so we quit. We all quit. And we started the first reverse mortgage consultancy ever.
That's an incredible sales pitch right there.
Yeah. I mean, I was shitting. I can't believe he actually bought it, but he did. It's called
there was a huge need too, though, because
100%.
If Freedom Financial wanted it, and everybody else in the industry was wanting it or would soon be wanting it.
That's it, right? It's like I knew that this was asking me this question, and he had a purse. He could write some checks. And so I'm like, man, how many guys are there like this that we could do this and create a service, right? And so we did. It's called the website's RM, like reverse mortgage insight.net, which is reverse, but it's actually not reverse mortgage, it's reverse market insight.
Mm-hmm.
Still going to this day. Last I talked to him, I haven't talked to him in a while because I cashed out to put the money in real estate. But they're cash flowing like $9 million a year. Now it's a problem. They're going to have a hard time selling because like their main client is like HUD. Right. So it's going to be difficult to sell when you have like that key account sensitivity, but
when you the entrepreneur's challenge of you have one or two accounts that are so big that without them, you don't have a business.
And that's a problem. So you're getting the cash flow, but you're not going to be able to actually exit for people that aren't, that are listening, that don't understand that. But anyway,
it comes back to as you're watching this, here's a key question. Are you building a lifestyle business or are you building an equity business? Do you want something that it's okay, it's going to fund your lifestyle, and when you're done working, the business is done? Or do you want something that you can pass on, that you can cash out, that you can hire professional managers to come in and run for you? And that's what Jake's talking about with a business where you just have one customer or a very small percentage of your customer base drives 90+% of your revenue. You've got a challenge in terms of having an actual equity business and being able to do something with it. Because
to be honest, like in the real life, in the real life, it's not all that different from having a boss.
Yeah.
Because you're dependent on one, right? And if they don't like it, man, you're like, well, okay, I guess I got to go do something else because everything's dependent on them. So yeah, man, this is why I needed to know somebody like you. This is the only thing that sucks and why I'm so like dedicated to this whole thing that Cardone is doing is that Grant
that's why we both needed to know somebody like Grant Cardone.
Dude, if you listen to Grant's story, right? Like he didn't really start humming until he hit 50. Yep. He had like $1 million, $2 million business. And then that same financial crisis hit. And now the guy's worth over $1 billion, man. And he did that like in 13, 14 years. To me, I'm like, dude, teach me, please. I'm like on my knees, like, please, let's do this. Cause I wish I would have had that when I was 20, man, and I'm hoping to give that to my kids, like the knowledge, like actual real financial literacy. I'm overeducated with regards to finance. I have a master's in one of the hardest disciplines and I got it, man. It was a pain in my ass, but I did it. And I'm telling you, man, everything that I've learned with Grant is so much more valuable. I kind of wish, I would have had that as an opportunity. Obviously he wasn't doing what he was doing. But that's why I feel almost like an evangelical about it. You know what I mean? Like it's just so easy to improve people's lives, but they just need to know, first of all, that you're going to have to work your ass off. I think that's probably the biggest hurdle is really getting people to understand it's not 9 to 5, it's 5 to 9.
Yeah. You can work half days. Pick which 12 hours you want to work.
Right.
And it's probably going to take more than that.
I mean, you got to be really seriously clocking 70 or 80 hours a week. If you really want
Mhm.
to like get from like bootstrap it, you got to be hustling hard at all times.
Yeah, because I remember when I was dating before I met my wife, I went out on a blind date with this gal. I remember it to this day. Blind date with this gal, nice gal. We had a nice date and went out for dinner and a little dancing and whatnot. And we're having some conversation, and she was asking questions about work and whatnot. And I mentioned I was working about 50 hours a week at the time, which was like vacation. And she's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you're such a workaholic." And I dropped her off, said goodnight, and didn't see her again.
Because you know that that's not somebody you can build with, man.
Right, right. And it's just not. I never worked a 40-hour week on anything. And like you said, there's seasons in life where we've got a similar story. I won't get into the details because you covered it brilliantly. But especially when I was younger, multiple hustles going on. Working part time, running a side hustle, and going to college to work my way through undergrad and whatnot. So that's sometimes you just don't sleep for a couple of years because you got to put a foundation in to build on.
100%. I'm fascinated by it. But so what, because like where I'm at now, and this is another
Mhm.
reason why I kind of am working with Grant as well, is that I feel very confident I could take somebody from 0 to 2 mil because I've done it,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
But I haven't scaled to 100 mil, right? And this is where like I want to hear about your story. This is me being selfish right now. And so I know that this, I've got a small following, but I want them to hear from you. You know what I mean? So I know you've got your audience, and I'm very grateful for you for us talking like this, and you sharing with them. Sharing
Yeah.
your audience with me. But my audience, I don't think they don't know. Like they basically what you do is you do where I'm like trying to get to, and that's going from the small, because people don't understand, like the people that are new to entrepreneurship, 2 million is like nothing. I mean, in terms of a business and in terms of evaluation, you really want to be aiming for 10 to really 100. Like with my wife and I run a software
Mhm.
company now, gatemaster.com. It does amusement and attractions management, right?
Yep.
Ticketing, point of sale, all that. We're trying to scale that to 100 million. And it's just such a different set of problems that I never really had encountered. So I'd love
Right.
to hear, like your path and like kind of how you do it.
Well, because the mindset and the skill set's a little bit different at different stages as businesses scale up, right? Getting that first couple 100,000 in sales is a lonely journey because you just got to be good enough at everything to force it through, right? It takes a lot of hard work. Scaling up to the 2 million, that's a little bit different, right? You have to start, hiring some people. You're
Right.
looking at opportunities, starting to think farther down the road, still putting some time in and scaling up from there. Then it's the role shifts. And that's something, in scaling up Gatemaster, are you seeing a shift in your perspective in what your
Dude.
role is in the organization,
Yo, dude,
or
like
as the
100%.
leader of the organization?
Yeah, 100%. So, this is the problem I see. And I haven't worked with you, and this is why I'm like, dude, I pick everybody's brain. People that know what's up, I'm like, please,
Mhm.
please tell me some info. Um, but like we're working with Grant's partner, Brandon Dawson, to help us scale, right?
Mhm.
Because
Yes.
like one of the things that I didn't understand is that I understand now is you got to get out of this like tinkerer mindset where you're the technician and you're just kind of dinking around and doing the best you can. You've got to start hiring like people really that know what that they're doing, and you've got to set up systems so that people can exit roles. Like
Mhm.
they have to be like systematized, and that to me, I think it's like one of the scariest things as a small business owner is because you feel like you're giving your power away or you're giving control, but you're actually getting more control. But you need to know how to make these people work for you, how to set up incentives, and how to grow and scale. And that's
Well,
kind of where my learning process is now. I'm just like, I feel like a
yeah.
sponge. Like my brain is like trying to suck all that in. It's definitely a new way of thinking.
Well, and it's about trust. I mean, I had a self-awareness moment that I did not like at all because at a certain level, it's like going, this isn't working. And it's like, and one of my business mentors is going, you got to trust them. I'm like, yeah, but I don't. What do you mean I got to trust them? Trust but verified. It's like, well, if you don't trust them, you got to have the right framework to bring people in that match the values, that have the ability that you can trust are going to operate within the frame that you've set.
Something as simple that I thought was dumb and trite.
That's a huge moment for entrepreneurs to be able to go, wow, it's like, I'm going to give you my kid, to do your thing with unsupervised. And I don't like that. Can they make that transition?
Like you said, values, like just, I always felt like the mission statement was a joke. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
most companies it is.
But like, I didn't realize that if you have your mission and your values, that you can hire and fire around that. Like, it's just such a mind-blowing concept that I'm like, oh my God, you're not living up to the values of the company. You're freaking out. And it's easy because this is the other thing that people don't realize. Like, if, what do they say? Like 1 out of 100 people are a psychopath, which means it's basically just that they don't have empathy. I'm not that guy. It's awful having to fire somebody.
Yeah,
but like
good.
Understanding the missions and values of your company, and then just having that written down. And when somebody is off mission, you're like, bye-bye. It's not personal. That's you, not me. Because here's what you're doing. Here's what we're doing. You're not doing what we're doing. You got to go. Like,
fit is so important, and it's unfair to somebody to keep them on the team when they don't fit, because there's a place where they could just knock it out of the park that's going to be a good fit for them. And even worse, it's unfair to the rest of the team because it's dragging them down.
Oh, the worst.
Right?
It's like
that lid for them.
It's like that bad apple, right?
Yep, that it is. I'm watching the time, we're starting to really. We're not even shaving the top of the ice on the iceberg at this point.
I love business. To me, like, I think that there's like basically two ways that human beings can get along, and that's the political way and the business way. And I don't like to mix the two. I don't think that they should be mixed either. That's a third way, I guess, is like pure politics, pure business, or hybrid. And I like pure business because that's all consent. You're only buying something because what Grant calls the winner's exchange, right? Like,
yep.
You like my hat, and I like your $20 more than I like my hat, and you like my hat more than your $20. We both get a win-win. That's positive sum. That's some good game theory for me, right?
Yeah, there's no third party standing back going, you have to give him the $20 for the hat, and you have to give him the hat.
Right. I mean, it's like, to me, so for me, it's not even just, I think it's awesome and I love it. I'm a nerd for it, but I also like almost have like kind of like a moral sense behind being a business person and being an entrepreneur. And that's not to say there aren't unscrupulous or unethical people, because they're that you find that in any group. You find that
exactly. You find that in any group, any profession. There's always, like you said, the proverbial bad apple, right?
But that said, I think that, like, this is the thing that I really like. So I not only did the mastermind on with Grant on Monday, Tuesday for the licensees. We had a trade show for Gate Master up in Orlando. So I was in the Mojave Saturday and Sunday, Miami Monday, Tuesday, Orlando Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then back to Miami for the gala.
Holy cow.
That gala, I really love what he's doing because it's all financial literacy, and it's all for like underprivileged kids, and especially kids without fathers.
Well, and there it is right there. That's why I like working with entrepreneurs, right? Because you look at the economic analysis globally, and it's entrepreneurism. It's the people building businesses over the last 40, 50 years have lifted like 80% of the people that were in just unbelievable grinding poverty up to a point where, they're not wealthy, they're not affluent, but they're not starving.
Right.
We still got more work to do in that, but the entrepreneurs have such a huge impact in the, like you were talking about the people you met along the way. And as I got my first job out of college, and I saw this when I was younger, but I really started getting it when I was out in industry. You'd see people that had built businesses and then look at, because a lot of times it's not getting headlines, the good works that they're doing in the community, the foundations that they're building, the boys and girls clubs that they're funding, the women's shelters that they fund, the feed, the, food for those that are struggling, that they make possible by saying, yeah, sure, we'll put some money into that, because they've got the ability, or they've got the ability and some time to create something that fills a need that doesn't have anything to do with making a buck.
Yeah, and everything in our world right now is so like, and I think this might be because of social media, like everybody's so like in everybody's business. Everything is so politicized right now, and it's a real shame because, like all this lockdown stuff was really disheartening for me and my passion for small business, my passion for entrepreneurship, because here you have like this government shutting down all small business and leaving the big jerks open. Like, I'm sorry, like Walmart and all that, they do great stuff. Okay. But why are they essential? And the other business, to me, it was like a nuke. And I think it was, I can't remember who put this out, the stat, but it was something like the effects of lockdown pushed all those people, like it pushed something like, I can't remember the number, but it was like over 1 billion people back into like the lowest rung of poverty.
Yep,
and everybody's like, oh, look, flatten the curve. I'm like, what about these people that literally have flies on their eyeballs and are looking like walking skeletons? And you guys, you don't even have to lift a finger to help them. You don't have to donate. Just get out of the way of entrepreneurship. Get out of the way of people making the world better, not these bureaucrats that are just there for their own glory. And now you find in these guys, see, this is where I really have a problem kind of ethically with these, like not only these political people, but these political people that use business, right? Mm-hmm. Like this revolving door politics thing. Because you look at somebody like Fauci, that guy's got so many conflicts of interest. It's really a problem. You know what I mean? Like he's profiting off of some of these policy prescriptions that he's in charge of. It's like, that's like really not bueno, man. It's no good because, like there are so many people out there. This is the one thing that I wish that anybody listening to this right now could understand. If you want to make the world a better place, go solve a problem and make a crap ton of money doing it. It's a win-win for everybody. You win and you solve a problem. It's amazing.
And then you've got money, which is a tool to do more. It's an easy equation.
I mean, Grant his foundation raised $2 million in one night.
Dangerous is if you question what's going on, you get banned on the internet. You may even get investigated, have your home and your business raided. And
dude,
now there's
a discussion
of who qualifies for First Amendment protection and who doesn't.
It's a crazy time, dude. Like, so
it is.
In my youth, when I saw the writing on the wall. I sold out of RMI, and I was like, man, we got to get out of California. This is crazy. So in 2008, I took my wife and we had a baby, and we moved to Utah because she had family in Utah to help. I figured like we're going to need some people to help raise this kid while we work. We ended up having 2 more kids there. Fantastic. Utah was very pro-business as a state. That's where our company, Game Master, really started taking off and blowing up big. But while I was there, I still was like trying to figure it out. And man, politics is trash. You know how Grant always says cash is trash? Politics is trash too, because I tried it. I went and I ran for U.S. Congress on a third party, but I did a good job. I'm clever. So, I got around the money issue. I ran on the Libertarian Party ticket against Jason Chaffetz, who was a very popular incumbent at the time. And I figured I'm like, okay, I got to figure this thing out. Because I'm a good problem solver, like street level. Like, get me in, just draw me off somewhere. I'll figure it out. And so I was like, dude, there's no way, especially third party, that I could compete with this guy. Because the ads on radio, especially political radio, were so expensive. I was like, dude, there's no way. I'm new in the state. No, I got no connections. So what I did is I wrote a book. It was the first book to show how the Tea Party had been infiltrated and turned to be from a tax protest thing with Ron Paul into like a pro-Iran war thing with John McCain. So I wrote this book, and it got me a lot of attention, especially on talk radio. Well, I used those interviews, just like this podcast, and I ended up getting my own 2-hour talk radio show on the third oldest political talk radio station in the country.
Wow.
And so I was like, who needs ads? I got 2 hours, baby.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's funny is that I ran in Provo, and this is like the most conservative district in the country by voting. Like, you can look this up. It's like they vote Republican, man. So Chaffetz is running. He's very popular, but I kind of hold his feet to the fire. And I'm on radio every day. And so the Provo Herald, which is the big newspaper there, they run a poll. I come in second place. The Democrats in third. Okay. They hold the debates and don't invite me. It's only Chaffetz and the Democrat. I mean, it's just how you learn how awful the system is, right? Like, it is not. And then I went and I chaired the state
It's almost as if it's no longer government by the people for the people.
Oh, as if it's totally not. I'm just telling you, as somebody who's got my hands dirty. So I started running the state political party, and under my tenure, it was the fastest growing political party in the state. Okay. So I was making waves, but dude, like, politics operates a little bit like the mafia. I also had my car tampered with. Mm-hmm. I also had, I was on a flight to go coach wrestling in England. And while I'm in the air, people start calling my wife and issuing death threats. There was that big scandal about how Obama was using the IRS to target Tea Party protesters. Dude, I have always been clean with the IRS, always had a CPA, always I'm like, I don't want any trouble, man. One day I go and I look at my bank account, it's overdrawn, and I'm getting all these like overdraft. The IRS levied my account, and I'm like, what the hell, dude? I call my accountant, and she calls them and bangs it out, and they're like, oh, sorry, it was a mistake. And they put all my money back, but meanwhile, I had like $700, $800 in overdraft fees, right? So it was like harassment. And then 6 weeks later, they do that to my wife's account. I mean, dude, you want nothing to do with politics. You want nothing to do, in my opinion, unless you are deep connected or you got serious money. Just stay out of it. Stay off the radar. Shadow banning is a real thing, like he's talking about. Like, they will reduce your views. It's really difficult, man, because everybody has gotten sucked in and their attention channeled into social media. And now all they have to do is control media. And, Noam Chomsky made this argument about TV and newspapers before social media was the main way people got information. So it's not like it's new, but it's just trash.
And it's important to understand, if you affect impactful change, there will be a response. And doing work for a Fortune 500 company, I got death threats face to face from management at the company because we were changing stuff, and they're like there was a battle within the company, new guard, old guard, and they were like, not going to happen, you got to back off, or this is what's going to happen. We want you to do this, this, and this, or
that's another
death threats
piece
from clients doing, I was doing a turnaround for a company in some of their people tried to poison me. It's crazy how people, when you get people to change, I like to use this analogy. It's like bungee jumping. Every time you ask somebody to change, to do something different, it's like asking them to jump off a bridge with you. It sparks that same response, but at different levels. So depending on how much of a change it is, it can be just a little bit, or it can be that, holy crap, I'm on the wrong side of the railing, standing alongside a bridge, which is an amazing emotional moment, and people will respond. And you see that a lot in politics where it has gotten, shall we say, a little too off track.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, that would, again, so persistence prevails where all else fails. Yep. Find a mentor that's like number one, that's like, and make the sacrifice to get with them.
Yep.
And stay the hell away from politics as far as you possibly can. This is like what if my kids watch this in like 20 years, like that's the advice I would give. Like, yeah, and don't be afraid to be creative. Like, really, like, be creative and take calculated risks. Risks are important. I think this is another thing that's happened to our culture. Are people, like you and I are talking, like you got poisoned. I had my car tampered with and death threats and stuff. You got to kind of take risks though, people. Like you got to kind of push up and see what the boundaries are a little bit too. So I'm not necessarily say taking crazy risks like maybe like you and I did or whatever, but you got to push it. You got to put yourself out there.
You don't jump off a bridge with a proven secure bungee system attached to you, right? You don't base jump without a parachute. So yeah, there's some limits on the risk taking, but there's also no such thing as safe and secure living.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's like we were talking about see, this is the thing that I think people don't understand is and this is kind of the mindset of my parents and a lot of people that had this middle class, like, oh, I just want to get a good paying job. Dude, you have no idea, especially I'm telling you as somebody who's an entrepreneur who now has people on salary, you're so at risk because you share the exact same risk that I do in terms of like the company could go out. But the problem is you have only one cash flow and that's your job. You have one boss. When I'm an entrepreneur and I have hundreds or thousands of clients, I have hundreds or thousands of bosses. And guess what? If I don't like one of them, I can flip them the bird because I got 999 other ones, right?
Yep.
So,
or one of them goes out of business,
or something else happens, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is the irony because people just are like, they don't. I mean, I don't like placing blame, but the public education system is such a massive failure. This is why like something like what Grant's doing with the Cardone Foundation is important, like telling people like how to actually look at the financial world,
Yes. Yeah. Because we don't prepare kids anymore for the reality of life after high school, after they get through the school system.
Dude, they can tell you the valence.
We did home ec. We had mandatory home ec. They taught us how to run a checkbook, how to do some basic stuff. I had to cook and sew as well, which, as a young boy, I wasn't really thrilled about that, but we had fun with the class. We also got some life skills too.
Well, a high schooler might know about valences in chemistry or mitochondria in biology or Pythagoras, but they can't keep and maintain a job or grow wealth enough to have a family.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? Like, that's the base. That's like all the other stuff doesn't even really matter until you and the thing is this is what I learned from education is that they pretend to know what you're going to need to know and they have no freaking clue. Like even up into grad school, I hear I've got this master's degree in financial math and financial engineering, done all this crazy like stochastic calculus and advanced like statistical analysis and whatnot. And most of the stuff that I actually needed to learn, I just learned on the job.
Mm-hmm.
Gee, like it's so crazy. Yep. So getting kids out working, understanding that work is awesome, and like this Tim Ferriss thing, the 4-hour work week. I'm like, dude, that is stupid. He's a smart guy. I'm not saying he's stupid. I'm saying you're pandering to the worst thing that you could possibly do by trying to get people into this idea of a 4-hour work week, man. That is ridiculous. That's what plateaued me too. Like not only thinking that I was the smartest person in the room, but trying to make money so I could work less. Like you can't, it's not feasible until you figure out how to turn your earned income into passive income. That will never, ever happen. And you're not going to get the passive income working 4 hours a week.
No, and it's focusing on the wrong priority, right? It's not the hours being put in. It's what's the objective? What's the framework for getting there? Now, what does that take?
And what's the impact? Like you got to have a big impact to make some money.
Yes.
Like disruptors or whatever, I guess is
big
the
why.
word that they use.
Yeah. Because here's something I learned out in industry. I worked for 2 Fortune 500 companies that were gobbled up by other Fortune 500 companies, and one completely ceased to exist, and the other was chopped up and resold. and that was, that was like, how much more stable can you get than these big multi-billion dollar companies that, and both of them they were legends in their industries. They had been fundamental in the creation of the industries that they operated in. They had diversified product offerings and whatnot. Didn't matter for squat. One of them, they're going, oh, there are a lot of people. The one good thing I saw in it the second time we went through it, the company had been struggling, and I saw a lot of people on their retirement portfolios get made whole because the stock price accelerated. And then that all disappeared after it got gobbled up.
I mean, people are quick to forget like how bad 2008 was.
Yeah. Well, this was in the 1990s. I was working in aerospace, and the peace dividend from the end of the Cold War was we went from 136 prime contractors in aerospace working with the federal government to 9 in 8 years. We
That's
lost
centralization, man.
Permanently in the southwest portion of Los Angeles County, we lost 400,000 exceptionally high-paying jobs permanently that were never replaced.
Mm.
Now when you got millions of people, that's fine, but each one of those jobs, depending on whose analysis you look at, supported 4 to 7 other jobs.
Right.
And it's like, wow, okay, so. And there's been some backfill with some other tech, a lot of entertainment industry stuff since then, but it never went back to what it was. And that drove home for me the point that there's no, like you were saying earlier, there's no safe ground. It may seem safe today, but in the long run, there's no guarantee that company, let alone that job, is going to be there 5 years from now. What are you doing to prepare for that? If you're running your own thing, or at least a side hustle, you're in a stronger position to be able to adapt to what's coming up. I was at an event at Caltech, and one of the professors that was presenting, he hit me with a question. I was sitting in the front row and I'm making notes fast and furious, and he goes, "You?" And I'm going, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh crap." He goes, "What's Darwin's theory?" It's like and I said, survival of the fittest. And he's like, "Oh, no, of all people, you." And I'm like, "Who does he think I am?" And I'm looking around, there's all these big brains from Caltech. And I'm like you. I think I'm maybe on a good day about average. It's just if I put more effort in it, I get ahead. And I'm looking around all these people. And I'm like going, "Oh crap," and he goes, "Of all people, I thought you would know." And I go, "No, what?" He goes, "It's survival of the most adaptable."
Adaptive. Yep.
Not survival of quote the fittest. It's not about aggression. It's not about fitness. It's about who can adapt the fastest. We saw a lot of that last year. We saw a lot of that in 2008, 2009 with the global financial crisis. We saw it in 99 with the tech bubble. We see it again and again, and it's coming. There's something's going to blow up economically just based on scheduling in the next year or two.
Oh, I wrote a book back in 2011. It's been like, because I'm pretty good at like trends, like seeing these like macro trends. And I called the book End, like EN, like the end, Endonomics. Yeah. And it's about the end of the United States, right? Because I mean, like you look at like debt to income ratio, like for you and me on getting a loan. If we apply that to the United States government, dude, we're hosed, like hosed. So you're going to either hyperinflate or you're going to repudiate the debt. Either one is no bueno for the country. Like it's just
right.
So you look at these are General Accounting Office and Congressional Budget Office numbers. These aren't like Alex Jones or something. This is like legit. Wow. So that's coming down the pike. 2025, between 2025 and 2030 is going to be a time of massive volatility. Now, volatility cuts both ways, right? Like it's going to be really awful for some people. It's going to be really awesome for other people. More millionaires were made during the Great Depression than any other time in history, right? So,
bingo.
So
bingo. Having a time of phenomenal opportunity. There's so much. It's such a big steaming pile of get your shovels out because there's got to be a bunch of ponies buried in there somewhere.
Dude, it's insane. Like, and the thing is I think so we're in the information age, right? And so, what Grant always says is attention, money follows attention. And so I do think that the new commodity now is attention, right? Like look at how everybody's vying for screen time with people. But the challenge, the flip side of that attention is distraction. You have so many people trying to distract you and pull you off your pivot. So, it's important. Like, so this is why I've taken up the coaching mantle, right? Is because I think it's important. One, as a coach, you help people maintain their focus on things by giving them accountability, but you also give them that kind of financial literacy so that they are able to navigate. And you need to find somebody like yourself or like myself. Dude, I've been an entrepreneur now through 3 financial crises, and each one's gotten me better. So, or look at Grant, right? Like, he was doing good. And then that 2008, boom, that's what he needed. Now he's a billionaire. But 2008 looked different for some other people. You feel me? So
yeah,
I just appreciate what you're doing, man. Like,
last year during the Great Shutdown, some companies exploded, and setting aside those that were forced into closure, of the companies that were able to operate, that were able to adapt to remote environment, some of them had the best years ever. I was talking to a colleague of mine that works in the ports of LA and Long Beach, and he said, "You know what?" He goes, "We had in August, I believe it was August of 2020, which was the midst of California's lockdown. They had the biggest month in the history of the ports in terms of containers processed through the ports." So,
so that makes me think, and I'm curious about your perspective because you're super smart and you're actually there local. What do you make of all this supply chain stuff? Like, what do you think is going to happen in the next year or two on all this? Because to me, that again seems like a political problem. Like, if we just got the dumb bureaucrats out of the way, commerce would be going again, and it wouldn't be so doggone fragile.
Yep, it's. I think there's a lot of moving parts there. It's almost like, at least at times, it creates the appearance that at least part of it is manufactured.
Yeah.
But that being said, there's a lot of moving parts, and that's getting into a whole nother line of discussion that we could spend a couple hours on. And I want to respect your time.
That's true.
We're already running way over.
Hey, I just love talking to you, dude. I go all day talking to this. I'm like a nerd for this. I just talking to somebody that's smart about these things so I can get some good answers and share some of the things that I know. This is amazing. We should do this again. I really enjoyed this.
Yes. Yeah. I think we've got so much that we can talk about. This could be like an ongoing series.
Yeah, man, that'd be awesome.
I like that idea. So, but I want to, as we're starting to wrap up, Jake, what are you working on now? I mean, what's coming up next?
So I'm really trying to my consultancy is called Thales, after Thales and Miletus. Like, again, I'm a nerd, and he was like an amazing human. So if you're into philosophy and into like philosophy of science and you read about the guy, he's a mind blower. So that's what I named my company after. It's Thales. So it looks like Thales, but it rhymes with Bailey's, like the liqueur, like Thales. So you can go to thalescoaching.com. That's I've really been dedicated.
Thales.
Yeah, Thales coaching.com. So I've been really hustling that up this year. I've been doing this business development consulting for 11 years now. And I just kind of been doing it under my own name and just not really having a formal company that I could scale. So when lockdown happened, I was like, okay, this is going to be perfect, dude, because there are going to be a lot of people that are going to need to know how to make some money for real. So that was my big entrepreneurial play last year. But my scientific wrestling company actually has been going crazy because, I mean, you look at UFC, they sold that for $4 billion. WWE's market cap's $8 billion, and I sit right in between. I own that Vesica Pisces of that Venn diagram, and so we've actually launched our own promotion. We've been doing a lot of training camps. I just got a new mace, like the steel mace thing that I do, the mace bell. Just got a deal with a new manufacturer, so that's actually been blown up like crazy. But that's also just been kind of a side hustle for 20 years. So just the persistence on that is now starting to pay off. That's a total bootstrapper. I have not put hardly any money. I just kind of recycled a little bit of the money back into it. But that's probably the big one. And then Gate Master. So my wife and I are like whole hogs. I got kind of 3 big projects that I'm trying to push through. So, Thales and scientific wrestling are definite passion projects. Game Master is like, that's the one that I want to push to 100 million. So I have the feather in my cap. That's where I'm at.
Awesome. And what's the best way to keep in touch with you?
You could find me. I mean, I'm pretty much shadow banned. Everybody sends me all these, like, when they try to find me online.
Jake, you're saying all the wrong stuff, you know?
Yeah. So maybe don't associate with me on social media. It might be bad for your reach, but you can always hit me at jake.shannon@gmail.com. That's the easiest, or just go to like one of my websites, like Thales, THALES, coaching.com. There's contact info. I will talk to anybody. I set up my Calendly. I will sit 15 minutes. I will give you 15 minutes of my time. My time's expensive, but I will give you 15 minutes to rap with you. I will give you ideas. I'm going to get you signed up for my business, but I will also give you quality time and quality ideas on those 15 minutes. You can get on Thales and connect that way. That's probably, I guess, the best way.
Awesome. Jake, thanks so much for your time. We'll definitely, as you're watching this, there's going to be more. If Jake's willing to come back,
let's do it, man. I love you, man. This was so fun.
So thanks for watching Wolf's Watch. You know, didn't get any comments from you today. What's the deal? You know, bring your questions. This is 21st Century TV. This is live and interactive. So after the show, we always keep track of the comments. We always keep track of questions. So if you've got a question, if you're watching this on replay, post your question in the comments. I'll see it. I'll make sure that we get it, and we'll talk with Jake, and we'll get the answer. You know, Jake and I'll send you an answer back. That's our commitment to you, because we're all in this together. And Jake, thanks for what you're doing out in the marketplace, working with entrepreneurs in the projects you got going. You're bringing a ton of value. Look forward to continuing the conversation.
Likewise, man. I mean, you're the man. Thanks for doing this show. I'm really excited.
Awesome. And we'll see you on the trail.